Hello there and welcome to another Commodore 16 playthrough. And today we're going to play through Steve Davis Snooker. So what's this game all about? It's a simulation of snooker. Snooker was very popular in the 80s. It was its sort of heyday. Ironically, it was all brought about because of the advent of colour TV in the UK, and they wanted something that would show off all the different colours, and the sport of snooker was perfect for it because it has lots of different coloured balls. It's a green screen. It's a colourful game, but also it's nigh on impossible for snooker to be represented in black and white because obviously you've just got different shades of grey, and the scoring and the order of the balls depends on the different colours. They're all different values and so on. So anybody who's familiar with snooker will understand the sort of the idea of the game. So this version, I think it does remarkably well, considering it's trying to cram everything into 16K worth of memory, which, as I keep reminding people, isn't really 16K. It's more like 12K because once it's loaded the ROMs and all those sort of other things it's got in there, there's not a lot of spare memory and everything. So 12K, not bad at all. The game came with two different versions. There was a version with a black table, which is the one you're seeing now, which is slightly easier to play because the version with the green table, which is the sort of the traditional color of a snooker table, just didn't. It doesn't really stand out. It's difficult to see the difference between the different colors of the balls. But for some reason, which completely escapes me, they've made the white grey, which is the one I've just put my crosshairs under. Also, for reasons I do understand, they have made the black that sort of dark blue colour, which is to the very right of the screen. Okay, I completely understand that. That makes a lot of sense. So when you load up the game is a two-player game. You don't really get any options to play as a one-player or play against a computer. Again, perfectly acceptable as a reason why you wouldn't, because of the limitations of the game. If you wanted the blue screen, you used to go on one side of the tape, and if you wanted, black screen, and if you wanted the green screen, you would go on the other side, which is quite a nifty way of doing it, really. So at the moment, what I'm trying to do is play safe. What I'm actually going to do, just because it's a bit more entertaining, is give these balls a bit of a whack and let's spread them out so I can at least demonstrate that I pot some balls. So what's good about the game, as I say, it's quite a faithful representation of snooker. It seems to be, it follows all the sort of normal rules. There aren't any anomalies. It seems to be pretty intact, and I did enjoy playing this. The negatives of the game, first of all, you see a lot of color collisions. So I'm just going to put my cursor over to where the black is, and as you can see, half of it's black, half of it's black, bluey, whatever color you want to call that, and the other half's red. And you get that on the lines as well. So if you look at the green, some of the lines are green, and that's all to do with how the colors worked on a Commodore 16. The other thing is the colors themselves. You've got 120 odd colors to pick from, and I don't think they really pick the right sort of colors. Oh, I potted something. Oh, hey, here's me rambling on. Let's have a blue. Uh, so I think they could have tried a little bit harder with the color palette, which, to be honest, is probably the easiest thing out the whole game. Is picking some nice colors, because you're not talking a huge amount of time just to go through the 121 colors and just pick some nice ones. So there we go. Oh, and I've hit it. Wow. The third sort of criticism is that it's quite difficult to get this aiming right, and I'm not 100% convinced it's absolutely spot on. When I used to play this as a kid, I used to use a ruler to try and line up the shots. So I'm looking at that one now, and I'm actually, while I'm doing it, I am lining it up, and that looks about right. And I have a feeling this is going to go nowhere near. I'm not going to hit it too hard just to see what happens. Yeah, I was a lot closer when I lined it up with the ruler, so I'm not sure that the physics, the lining up, is all sort of put in there as well. And then the final thing is that the bounce of the balls is a little bit artificial. It seems a little bit excessive. It's almost like the tables are the bounce you get off the cushions is almost like it's a sort of trampoline effect rather than the sort of baize, the wood that's in a snooker table. So that there is that, and the lack of functionality, i.e., to play against the computer, to play against had the option of playing a one-player game, which would have been absolutely fine for me. Would have been cool. I mean, as you can see, there's a bit of a colour collision going on there with the table. So it can be frustrating. I'd imagine you can probably, if you play this often enough and long enough, you can work out the nuances of the game and get used to it. It's like any other computer game. It's a simulation. You learn how to deal with the simulation's effects more than the sort of the game itself. I mean, as you saw there, that was nowhere near, and I have a feeling that was a bit closer. But it is quite a cool little game, especially if you're playing it for real with more than one player. I'm going to give that a little tap. Yeah, nowhere near. The collision thing does get a bit awkward sometimes, because if you've got balls that are the wrong color, you can end up committing a foul without knowing it, or you pick you pick what you think is a red and you end up hitting a color, or vice versa, which is a little bit annoying. But maximum respect to the coders of this game, because it is a complicated thing to do. The physics of all of this, and again, you're talking about a very rudimentary computer, and to do any game at all on a 16 as well is pretty impressive. There were other games, better, maybe slightly harsh, for these platforms for playing snooker and pool. On my channel, there's a review of 3D American Pool. I think they did a snooker version of it, which is a little bit more playable. Obviously, you've got 3 times the amount of memory to play with, which will help. And also that came with things like tournament mode and play against the computer mode and so on. And then the big sort of game at this time was Jimmy White Whirlwind Snooker, which I think may have been just after the 8-bit computers. Again, I could be completely and utterly wrong, and that was quite a lot of fun. The license as well, Steve Davis. So Steve Davis was the predominant snooker player of the 1980s. So he was almost unbeatable. He's sort of the Michael Schumacher, the Tiger Woods of his day. He won a lot of world championships, I think about 5 or 6, and was a very predominant player. He was also quite famous for his lack of personality. He was often taken the mick off by comedians and things like Spitting Image. But today, I think he's sort of semi-retired now, but he's heavily featured on snooker programs as a commentator and as a pundit. So I'm just going to see if I can pop the pink. Make your own jokes up. There we are. Oh, go on. Is he going to go to the rebound? Oh, I was so close there. So it was a good license to have, because it made a lot of sense, because, as I say, that in the 80s snooker was everywhere, a bit like darts and snooker in the 80s were the sports to watch. They were very predominant both on ITV and on BBC as well. So I've just done a foul shot there, which is no good. So I get to put my ball in the place. That's quite a nice touch, actually, the fact that you can ask the player to play again. Not all 8-bit simulations of snooker have that in. I was a terrible snooker player, like in real life. Absolutely terrible. Hand-eye coordination, skills, all that sort of stuff, way beyond me. So I'm not going to say that this is not an accurate simulation of what I was. I was absolutely shocking. But 80s and 90s, the snooker was really popular. We had offshoot things like quiz shows, the Big Break with Jim Davidson. Again, there's another character from the 80s we don't mention that often, and it is shown a lot now on BBC, Eurosport, that sort of thing. Ronnie Sullivan is the sort of poster boy, if you like, for snooker. But no, it's not quite as popular as what it was. I think that the current generations just don't have the patience for learning of what is a very, very tricky game, and also the amount of practice you've got to put into it as well. Also, the players these days are highly professional and they're extremely good, and so there's a lot of really good players out there, and there's not as many tournaments, or not as many high profile tournaments. So It also sort of struggled with the same problems that darts struggled with, which was the fact that people could actually, the players could go on stage with a pint or a gin and tonic or whatever their tipple was, which for a sport was soon sort of ratted out as being not very professional. That the image they wanted to do was sponsored by a tobacco company, embassy, and yeah, there was at Marlborough, sorry, and there was a lot of changes that came about similar to darts as well. I'm not going to get in there. I'm not very good at that. See, now you got your colour collision. So which one am I? Which one am I? I know I'm the bottom one, but it's only because I was paying attention. I'm just going to slow that down a bit. Oh, am I going to go in? No, it's going the way around. So yeah, it's good game. So I remember playing a PC version of Steve Davis Snooker, and it had like proper videos in it where he's explaining not only how to play the game but also some of the nuances of snooker, because this is quite a crude game, as it would be, because of the it's an 8-bit game, absolutely no problem with that, but there are all sorts of subtleties to playing snooker to do with spin and using the nap of the cloth to drift your balls and doing trick shots and cannons and all sorts of other things. So, and that was quite a cool game, and that wasn't much later than this. That we're talking sort of early to mid 90s. I must dig out when it actually was, because that was quite a cool little game. So it's just amazing how things turned on. But yeah, for a Commodore 16 game, just purely as a technical achievement of doing all this sort of physics and everything, I think I think there's a lot to commend with it. So that's the Steve Davis Snooker. So I'm just about to commit to file. Yay! If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below. And don't forget to subscribe. Thank you.